And now, the Von Akron Show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's Friday. It's hard to tell anymore. And I believe that this is the Von Akron Show number 16, the Sweet 16 show. We've got an interesting show tonight. There's been a lot going on. I don't try to get too political with this thing, but, you know, things are just going nuts. So let me go ahead and bring in my guests here, and I'm going to unmute everybody, and then I'll do some introductions. There we go. So again, I'm Nico Von Akron. You guys know Diggs, my normal and usual, well, normal's probably not the right word, but he is a co-host typically.
Yeah, I'm still tripping from that new intro. I don't know what that was, but wow.
Oh, isn't it wild? Yeah.
That's just reminded me back
my
in
dog
2002 going to Posh. I'm just waiting for the trucks to come stumbling down the stairs.
Exactly. And then I've got Sarah, who has joined me once before. We've been chatting a lot, at night, because, time has no meaning during a quarantine. Mm-hmm. And she's got more stamina at night than I do. I can only go till 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I'm sure you're talking till 5 in the morning, and then you wake up and go buy us watermelons, which I was not expecting you to do. So she did deliver watermelons and wine to my house today. That was very nice. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
And then a new person on the show tonight. I've got Josh Rudden, and I've known Josh, for quite some time, since my days in the LPO, which is the Libertarian Party of Ohio. I don't know if we met maybe sometime back when we were trying to start the Summit County Libertarian Party or something like that. I know that Josh was one of the coordinators for the Gary Johnson campaign. That was the last election cycle. Josh is a Marine, and he is the founder of Veterans for Libertarianism, which is a Facebook page, which we'll get into in a little bit. He gets a lot of shit on that page, which I always find very fascinating because you like to highlight that stuff. And I don't know, Josh is just an all-around good dude as far as I know. Josh, welcome to the show tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm glad you got to join tonight. So I've got very sparse show notes tonight, so we're going to kind of wing it and see what happens.
So it's going to be like every broadcast.
Yeah, no, usually, look, dude, this is my show notes tonight. If you can see it, yeah.
So show.
Yeah, basically, it's usually 2 pages long, but I've got one quick note from earlier this week because I haven't had a show in a while. Oil prices. I watched oil prices. I don't know. Was that Tuesday? I think when it got down to 10 cents and it got down to negative $37. I mean, the last shock to the system was when oil got to $148 a barrel. I mean, this is crazy. And for anybody that thinks it just means, cheap gas at the pump, it might mean that. But I mean, we've got a lot of domestic production, and my company, as far as many others, we're heavily invested in that now. I mean, that's going to really suck for a lot of people. I mean, even here in Ohio, we've got the shale. And I mean, what have you guys heard about that? What are your takes on this?
I saw it a couple days ago that the same thing you did when it got down to negative 37. And I'm like, so how exactly does that work when the value of oil goes into the negatives? How does that work as far as are they paying us to take it, or what does that mean?
Well, they're not going to pay you at the gas pump.
I know that.
I mean, it just means that production is outstripped consumption, and there's no place to store it. So the value of storing it is higher than the value of the actual product itself. So have you been following this at all, Josh?
A little bit. Actually, you mentioned working for a company that's somewhat affected, and the company I work for has been very severely affected. Not at this very moment, but for the last few years, actually. I work at a steel mill, and one of the things we make is the well casings
Pipeline?
for the oil wells, for the pipeline. Yeah, for the oil wells when they drill them, and the collars and stuff like that. Which it was like 25% of our business years ago. I don't know. I guess 2012 ish. And when the oil dropped a long time ago, we lost a lot of business. And, everybody said, it's an election year. It always comes back. And it just kind of never did. And so now we've somewhat diversified into other things. But now it's definitely going to be a problem that nobody's going to be drilling. They're going to use what they have. They probably already bought and have stockpiles of parts and stuff like that they're just going to use up. And they'll probably a lot of companies, smaller companies, will go under. So yeah, it sounds great when you think gas is going to be free or very, very cheap. But there are a lot of companies in the United States that are going to suffer pretty badly because of it.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it's a huge problem because our domestic, not just domestic in the United States, but domestic in North America, most of that production, other than Texas, where you can just drill a hole in the ground to get some oil out. I mean, it's a very labor and cost intensive process because, in Ohio, where we are, you've got the shale, which you have to frack. You go up to Canada, northern Canada, it's a tar sand process. So they've got to extract it from the tar sands. I mean, it could cause a huge disruption. I mean, I know people that live down in like Columbiana County and stuff that, 15, 20 years ago, their land was valued at, I don't know, like $2,000 an acre or something. And with the mineral rights, with the fracking, it just went insane. And they're like living off the royalties for that. I mean, there's a lot of like sort of oil millionaires, or at least Cadillac driving folk down in Columbiana County and in Carrollton and places like that that's just going to completely wipe out. Again, it's like it's not always going to rain. The hay is not always going to be harvestable. You should probably set some of that away. But I don't know. Sarah, what do you think about this whole thing?
I mean, from what I've been reading is that this might push us towards oil companies focusing on renewable resources versus oil. I don't know if that's a possibility. I think some of them have already been working on the infrastructure to be able to do that. So maybe this will be the push to actually focus on wind or solar.
That probably
is interesting.
There's probably a lot of environmentalists. This is basically their wet dream. The future that was supposed to be 100 years from now, when we ran out of oil and you had to switch to renewables. The market might actually make it in the next few years to where it's more profitable to switch to renewables if gas prices stay low and oil prices stay low. So here we have the market maybe doing what they've been pushing for the government political, I guess.
You froze up a little there, Josh, but I think we heard what you were saying. I mean, look, fossil fuel is not going to disappear anytime soon. I mean, it's going to take a long time to transition away from that, just based on the fact that, we all drive cars and, you've got natural gas providing a lot of the electricity in the United States. But, I think a lot of the energy companies were already kind of going that way. I mean, they saw the writing on the wall, and it didn't have to come from the government per se. It was just what consumers wanted. And it's also what, inevitably we're going to start running out of oil. I don't think that's anytime soon. But the disappointing thing to me is that due to things like 3 Mile Island and, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island specifically for the United States, I think it was in the 70s, right? Late 70s. that we kind of put a moratorium on nuclear power. And there is so much better technology out there these days than what existed back then. Way safer. Like they have these rebreather reactors. You don't have all the waste. I mean, that's really disappointing because something like that could make, electric vehicles and things like that much more feasible in the short term.
Agreed. It's one of those things where we need to get some kind of a structure in place that is more user friendly, and it's gotten a long way for stuff like electric vehicles. Like you see a lot of the charging ports all over town and stuff, but I think the technology needs to advance further along, and it has quite a bit as far as even what it was 5 years ago with electric vehicles. I just think there's this, your consumer is going to have that fear of, and probably the reason why hybrids are so popular is because that fear of, oh my God, what if I run out of a charge?
Yeah, like you got a
gasoline that just goes.
Well, and you got like what, a 300-mile range now? I mean,
yeah.
Is that close to the max? I don't keep up with it, but I mean that could be an issue.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with it. I know a lot of them. It's just seen from watching different car documentaries and stuff, and reading stuff online about it. But I haven't really been in the market for an electric car, so I'm not quite sure exactly where the specs are at right now.
Yeah, I mean, and look, as far as oil prices go, they're bottoming out. I mean, sub-bottoming out right now. They're going to come back. How rapidly and in which way, I have no idea. It is going to come back, but that's all going to be reliant on how fast, the economy recovers. And then, oil isn't just used for fuel. I mean, it's used for plastics. It's used for basic chemical components for a bunch of different stuff. So, I mean, it's going to come back. But who knows when?
I think it's dependent upon when people can do things again, too.
Right. It's taking a huge hit right now because nobody's driving. But you're right. I mean, cargo ships still have to drive across the ocean or sail across the ocean. Planes still have to fly. We still have to make things out of petroleum. So there's I'm sure a huge sector of the oil industry that's doing just fine. But I don't know what percentage of the oil industry is consumer gasoline.
Yeah, I mean, well, and there's airlines and things like that too. I mean, and before we get off oil, because we will in a second here, because it's kind of a boring topic, but look, plastic bags in particular, there's been a huge push to get rid of plastic bags, and I want to get you guys' feedback on this. We don't just use plastic bags to carry the groceries home from the store. We use plastic bags for every damn thing. Like when I was a kid, we used the bread bags, right, to waterproof your shoes. But without being that poor and that old, I mean, still, it's like you got poopy diapers, right? You got, dog shit, cat shit, whatever. Like there are endless uses for plastic bags. And, I understand the top line impetus for something like this, but again, I think it's a situation where you've got a bunch of unintended consequences. Because what if I couldn't go to the grocery store and get plastic bags? Like, what would I actually use for all of these other tasks that I have for plastic bags? And I don't know. First, what do you guys use plastic bags for, if anything? And secondly, what do you think of the whole movement to sort of ban them? Because it doesn't consume a lot of resource. I mean, they're very thin. I mean, it's not like, out of all of our worries, I don't know if plastic bags are the biggest one. And again, I don't know if we're the ones that are contributing everything to, like, you've got this Pacific plastic gyre out there, right? I mean, it's been shown that most of that shit's coming from, I think China and India, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, my straws and plastic bags are not necessarily contributing to that. They're going directly to a landfill. And before I say another point, I'll let you guys chime in. Josh, let me start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I use plastic bags all the time. I think there is the immediate knee-jerk desire to ban them because they don't break down. They can get into the water. People litter, all that kind of things. They're made of petroleum. But I don't personally know, but how many trees you have to kill to make the same amount of paper bags as we use plastic bags every year. But I know that trees don't grow all that fast. And, the reusable bags, the hemp bags, those require a farmer of some sort to drive a tractor filled with petroleum, diesel fuel to spewing out fumes. It requires clean water, which we're also supposedly running out of, to water those fields, to harvest them. It requires a truck to truck those resources across the country or across the ocean, perhaps, depending on where it's made. So it's not like you can just go pick paper bags off of trees out of your backyard. There's an awful lot of infrastructure also required for those that doesn't go away just because you switch from paper to plastic.
You don't have a bag tree? Man, no, I thought hemp was supposed to be the panacea of whatever.
Oh, yeah, you can make everything out of hemp. Houses, whatever. It's great.
Sarah.
I don't have very strong feelings about plastic bags, but I
Why
do.
not?
But I do reuse them in the trash can in the bathroom.
Yes.
Yeah. It's funny at my previous place of employment at the beginning of the year, a lot of people who were the consumers that were coming in there was so many people that were anti-plastic bags. They were like, no, we're going to save the environment, not using plastic bags, which is the hilarious part as they're buying stuff that has plastic packaging that's on it and whatnot, or it's in a box, but it's still wrapped in plastic. So it was a cellophane or whatever. So it's like, I just found that, I personally, I have let's see, I'm looking at the bag right now. One of them, there's 12 or 13 reusable bags in my apartment right now. And the reason why that is because every single time we go to the store, we forget to bring them. And then we end up coming back with plastic bags. So, and I agree with everything you said, Nick. They're good for, poop, dog poop scoops and whatever else you're going to use them for. And, what happens if those go away? Well, that's easy. They're going to put them on a shelf and you're going to pay, I don't know, $2.99 for a 20-pack of doggy poop bags now, which are just plastic bags, which will have more plastic packaging on them that you will be buying to use them. So that's kind of...
Yeah, exactly. And then, there was a big push for reusable, especially the canvas tote for those of us that occasionally listen to NPR, all about the canvas totes. But, even those, in this day and age with the COVID stuff going on, they carry germs like crazy. You'd actually have to run them through a sterilizing machine to get or wash them every time you use them in order to not spread diseases. I don't know. Anybody here shop at Aldi ever?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much just Aldi.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Josh.
I was just saying I've been there one time. Everybody talks about how great it is, but I've only made it over there once. We
go there because they have a German week once every couple months, and they just have the best schnitzel there. It's awesome.
Really?
But yeah, there you don't, they don't give away bags or anything like that, but you can always use the old cardboard boxes that they have left over, or you can use, I guess they have plastic reusable.
They do.
Bags. But I don't know. So that was the very fascinating topic of oil. I think we're going to get into something even crazier now, because for the last 2 days, shit's been blowing up with the whole, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just play this. So we're not paraphrasing. We are not putting words in anybody's mouth. This was the press conference. And if you guys don't hear sound when I start playing this, tell me immediately, because that means I forgot to press a button.
No sound.
I don't hear sound. You forgot to press a button.
I forgot to press the button. This is a very professional show, as you can tell. We'll do this one more time here. Share audio. There we go. And this first guy talking, not the most important part. We'll get into the whole story, but here it is anyway.
Is best in indoors and dry conditions. The virus does not survive as well in droplets of saliva, and that's important because a lot of testing being done is not necessarily being done, number one, with the COVID-19 virus, and number two, in saliva or respiratory fluids. And thirdly, the virus dies the quickest in the presence of direct sunlight under these conditions. And when you look at that chart, look at the aerosol as you breathe it. You put it in a room, 70 to 75 degrees, 20% humidity, low humidity. It lasts, the half-life is about an hour. But you get outside and it cuts down to a minute and a half. Very significant difference when it gets hit with UV rays. Mr. President, while there are many unknown links in the COVID-19 transmission chain, we believe these trends can support practical decision-making to lower the risks associated with the virus. If I could have my next slide. And while that comes up, you'll see a number of some practical applications. For example, increasing the temperature and humidity of potentially contaminated indoor spaces appears to reduce the stability of the virus. And extra care may be warranted for dry environments that do not have exposure to solar light. We're also testing disinfectants readily available. We've tested bleach. We've tested isopropyl alcohol on the virus, specifically in saliva or in respiratory fluids. And I can tell you that bleach will kill the virus in 5 minutes. Isopropyl alcohol will kill the virus in 30 seconds. And that's with no manipulation, no rubbing, just spraying it on and leaving it go. You rub it and it goes away even faster. We're also looking at other disinfectants, specifically looking at the COVID-19 virus in saliva.
So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that, so that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
Hey there, I'm Chris.
Okay, so very interesting. Oh shit, we lost Josh.
We lost Josh. But
Josh, rejoin. Dang it, rejoin.
all right, you know what this means, guys. We got to open these tanning booths back up immediately. That's how we're going to cure this. We got to cure it. We inject ourselves with some Lysol, and then we go tan, and no more coronavirus. Done.
Oops. Let me bring Josh back in here, and yeah. Okay, stop. All right, there we go. Josh, welcome back.
Welcome back,
Sorry,
Josh.
So,
out there a minute there.
oh no problem. So, this whole thing, it to me, it showed me a lot of, I guess it reiterated a lot of interesting points about several different things. It reiterated a point about the president, or several points about the president. It reiterated points about the media. And it also reiterated points about supporters and, non-supporters of President Trump. So before I even read anybody else's take on this, I wrote a little thing about it. I'm not going to read through it, but I mean, what struck me when I first listened to this, and you can tell me what you guys think, but it wasn't so much the injection of disinfectants, which actually is a direct quote from that video, no matter what anybody else tries to tell you. The UV on the outside, which our president knows a lot about, I think, because he is quite tan.
He's orange.
Or I don't know if that's from UV or if that's just, some sort of spray-on product, but it was the UV on the inside. Now, I have had people point out on social media since then that there is some sort of doctor, he may be a quack, he may not be, probably is, who shoves something down. I don't know if it's like a dialysis machine that treats all the blood with UV or whatever. Anyway, I read through his website, and it was all bullshit terms like turbocharges your immune system and stuff like that. So what struck me first about this was the UV things. What did you guys think about this when you heard it, or did you hear it first, or did you read headlines, or how did you go about this? Sarah, what's going on?
I did not watch him actually talk. I heard like the sound bites basically and everybody talking about it online. Because I have a hard time watching him speak. But I as far as the UV light goes, aside from anything that he said, I do think that there's some merit to sunlight and heat. But
sure.
that goes for any virus. As far as the disinfectants go, some people kept posting stuff about how what he was actually talking about was like a process in the body, like that, your body produces hydrogen peroxide when you consume large quantities of vitamin C, which is why it works so well at fighting off infections.
I'm sure that's what he meant.
Yeah. No, there was a very long list, explanation for, that somebody had formulated for all of the things that he might have meant, like therapies he couldn't have even known existed.
Right. Josh.
Yeah, I saw it. I didn't watch it live either. I have much better things to do with my life most of the time.
For real.
But after I watched the video, I was completely dumbfounded. I thought I had lost the ability to be surprised by anything he said. But no matter what he says, there are always people, like Sarah said, that will find some interpretation to make it not crazy. When clearly he doesn't know what he's talking about. Somebody probably mentioned it in his general vicinity that you can put UV light inside your body somehow, and he just ran with it as though he wasn't speaking to millions of people at the time. He just brainstorming harebrained ideas as though his pulpit doesn't actually matter. It's irresponsible.
Or was it just spur of the moment? I mean, I don't even know. What do you think, Jake?
I'm with these guys on the not being able to watch him live, only because it's got nothing to do with political things on this. He just rambles incoherent nonsense that has. I look at this sometimes and I'm like, okay, whatever. But you get the people who will believe everything he says to a T. And the other people who will, no matter what he says, will vehemently hate him for everything. And then you get stuff like this where it's just some of these things, for example, I look at this, for all the people who were praising him, if Barack Obama said that exact same statement, they'd be up in arms. They're like, what? Oh my God, he's trying to kill everybody. It's people just go along with whatever agrees with their ideology on this. And I'm does he not have anyone to be like, Mr. President, shut up, don't talk? It's sad that the last person that I want to hear from is the actual, and it's like night and day, because I don't know if you guys have been watching the Wine with DeWine, updates on the state. I've been trying to keep up on that, what's going on in the state of Ohio, and then usually afterwards you hear from DeWine, who, whatever your political affiliations is, regardless, at least he's articulate and well spoken, and is explaining things, why he's doing things. Then you get Trump, who's just like, I want to do this because it just sounds good. You're like, well, what? It's and the President of the United States just say that you could inject sunlight into your veins, and that you can that they can rub on bleach, to the point where the next day, I'm sure you guys all saw that every media outlet had to come out and go, "Don't listen to the president. This is not a good idea."
Don't do that.
Well, yeah, and look. And the media is a whole nother subject, and I want to get into that. But, I mean, like you said, actually, let's back up a second here. I think everybody who's on the show right now can testify, and I think most of you, too. I mean, I'm not some sort of, partisan, right? So, when Barack Obama was president, I called him out on a lot of shit, and some folks didn't like it, and some folks cheered it on. It's crazy now because the same folks that cheered on the shit that I didn't like about him are the ones that block me because I criticize the current president.
Strange how that works.
Isn't it? I mean, I think there's too much power in the executive. And I mean, that's that's the bottom line. But beyond that, so I'm, not a partisan. I'm not coming to this subject from that. Like, I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I try to get, God damn, it's hard, but I try to give the guy the benefit of the doubt when I can.
Right?
But it's so fucking ridiculous. Like you said, what if Barack Obama, what was the big fucking deal with Barack Obama? Didn't he wear like a gray suit or something? And like
there was that, and there was one time a tan suit, and the one time he held a coffee while he was saluting someone.
And people flip their shit. I'm not saying Obama was a great guy. I don't like a lot of the stuff that he did, but like, it's just crazy to me. And this is why I'm like starting to lose hope in humanity. Just like that level of insanity that's just normal now. And that's really fucking weird to me.
That's the thing that, like, I'm like, things before that would have been called out are now just like, they're just accepted. Like, for example, the whole thing that's come out now, he was being Trump was being sarcastic when he said these things. I'm like, no, he wasn't being sarcastic. He legitimately meant every word that he fucking said, and he believed in it. It's like, okay, if your guy does bullshit, call him out for doing bullshit. I don't care what side of the line you're on. It's like, otherwise, you're just going to allow nonsense to happen. You and I, we had a show. We called out Barack back in the day for certain things that happened, and it was legitimate. People now won't do it. And I'm like, his supporters won't do it, and then they consider, like, to the point where it's like, oh, you hate America if you're not on board with this. And it's like, no, I don't. I never, at any point in my life, have I ever not supported the office of the President of the United States. Never have I not supported it. However, the people in there, Well, congratulations to George W. Bush. You have moved up by not doing anything.
Dude, I kind of wish we had George W. Bush. I never thought I'd ever say that in my fucking life.
Yeah, there was a time not that long ago when everyone thought that was the worst we could do was George W. Bush. And boy, were they fucking wrong.
All he did was choke on a pretzel. I mean, it wasn't, he also started.
That was a whole 9/11 thing, but hey.
Destroyed, a lot of the world. Yeah. Whatever. But, I know, Josh, like, you're exposed to a lot of this shit because, running that page you run, like, I see the stuff you post almost daily of people just talking nonsense. And, I think
it's rough. If anybody who's been a libertarian long enough knows that there are no true libertarians. Somebody is always calling somebody else, you're not a real libertarian. But yeah, running that page, I started the page in 2012 to help support Gary Johnson's campaign. So from 2012 until Trump was elected, I was criticizing Barack Obama for all of the terrible shit he was doing. And now I criticize Donald Trump because he happens to be the president. But on a daily basis, oh, you're just a liberal because I said something about Donald Trump. It's like, dude, where were you for the 8 full years? I was just attacking Obama all the time, not because I didn't like the guy, but because I'm consistent with my principles. That people don't seem to understand that libertarians aren't just Republicans that want to smoke weed or whatever. We have consistent principles. I'm going to criticize whoever's there if they're violating my principle. But you get these people who think they're libertarians just because they don't like government, but they also support Trump. So if you don't agree with them, you must be a liberal, I guess.
I'm actually intrigued on Sarah's perspective of all this.
Huh?
Well, and
I'm intrigued by
Sarah,
your side on all this.
I wanted to ask you about this because somebody who's used to being called a liberal, I mean, that would be you, Sarah, to a T. I mean, do you not have a degree in poli-sci or something?
I do. But you know why I've been so quiet? I got my hush money today.
Nice.
So
thank you, Mr. President.
It's non-revocable. It's yours now. I mean, you can still talk.
Well, I already got the stimulus money I already gotten. I just got 3 weeks of unemployment with the extra $600 per week.
And that's amazing. I'm glad you finally got it because that has been a whole nother fuck up that I think we talked about last time.
But you know how
you're still waiting, Jake.
Jake, you know what you need to do?
email my senator.
Yeah.
That's
what I did.
all. Yeah, that's all
what
you
I did.
did. You emailed Senator Sykes, right?
I emailed Vernon Sykes, and then within 2 hours, I got a reply from his top legislative aide or whatever, and they said they were going to get in contact with their unemployment liaison. And then the next morning, I got a phone call from unemployment, and they took care of my issues. And by the next day, it was paid, and then the day after that, it was in my account.
I'm glad it worked out for you, but that's kind of fucked up that you got to, email
I'm actually
some
glad
sort
though
of.
that it's fucked up that you had to go through that process, and like people like myself are still waiting, and counting hundreds of thousands of others and millions are waiting. However, I think it's awesome that is he a senator or congressman?
State senator.
State senator. I think it's awesome
Vernon
that you
Sykes.
reached out and he actually, took care of it for you. That's great. That shows a politician doing their damn job.
There was actually,
Yeah,
I think Colleen, Colleen, I think she emailed him because I think he's also her state senator, and I believe they got back to him and they were going to look into her issues. And then as far as like the Winking Lizard, because I'm in the Winking Lizard page, there were several people that reached out to their state senators, and a couple of them got responses back as well to assist them. So.
Well, good for Vernon Sykes. I apologize, Vernon Sykes, for ever running a campaign against you, though it was a libertarian campaign, so it had no chance of unseating
it doesn't
you.
count. Yeah,
He just still delivers me beer.
Enjoy all that ginger ale money. Wait, no, that was Verner's. Sorry,
Those burners. I don't know what you're talking about there.
Werner.
Yeah, our old candidate. I used to see him every once in a while, delivering me some wine back in the day at my old work establishment. As I call him, Doom and Gloom.
That sounds about right. Josh? Do you remember old Sonny Kurt Liston?
No, I don't think I do.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
He's a good dude. It was just,
all right.
It was just, it was a time. So, please.
Sarah's situation brings up actually a pretty good point, if I can elaborate on a little bit.
Yeah.
Everyone, myself included, is so, what's the word? Just apathetic about government, I guess, maybe about the government's ability to get anything done, to do anything right, that most people just don't bother. Hardly anybody calls their senator, hardly anybody calls their congressman, hardly anybody has any input into their government besides voting, if they even bother to vote. But it is encouraging to see that, if you do call your government, try to hold them accountable, sometimes things actually do get done. So I think it's good to point out when things like that do happen, because it's not all terrible. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not all just incompetence all around. So that's good to hear that you got some results there.
Yeah, within like 48 hours, I had my money.
No, that's
good. Who knows how long you'd still be in the same boat I am of just waiting it out. And I have a situation where I'm like, okay, because I had some extenuating circumstance, because I had a severance package that was involved with my work and everything. So I don't want to do everything that's going to jeopardize my status with unemployment. But my severance package was only for 3 weeks, and this is week number 3. So at week number 4, the gloves are off, and I'm coming for what I want.
Yeah, contact your dude, Bernie Sykes, I think is his name. Bernie.
Yeah. Vernon.
Vernon. Excuse me.
Verner's Ginger Ale Sykes. Verner's Ginger Ale Wanda Sykes. That's who you contact. Then you get your money.
That was Jim Varney's friend, right? Ernest. Know what I mean, Vern? Anyway.
Vern.
I apologize.
Why don't we let you run this show?
I don't know. I really don't know. Because I'm the only one that paid my $25 a month, which is very cheap to get this stupid program.
Well, I
pay more for Ancestry.com.
Why?
Because I was doing I spent like hours and hours every day for like a year doing my family tree, and I don't want to cancel my membership because then I won't be able to look at it.
Can't you just screenshot it?
It's very big.
Out.
It's very big.
Can't you print it out?
No, you can't just print it out. It's like thousands of years.
See, my family tree is very narrow. It has very few branches.
Like
I'm pretty
sure
my family tree is a weed. I'm not sure.
Before we get into free for all, though, I was gonna say, too, like this whole situation with Trump talking about, disinfectants, UVs, etc. It did kind of put a yet another spotlight on the media, and I saw lots of headlines that said that Trump encourages people to inject Lysol or inject, and I'm like, okay, look, he did say, you need to look into injecting these things. I don't think it was being sarcastic or whatever, but that's not what he said. And I mean, if you're already running up against a campaign that just says that all media is fake and bullshit, why do you keep saying stuff that's not like verbatim true? And that kind of drives me nuts too.
Yeah.
Because the media is supposed to.
That same thing today.
Yeah. I mean, the media is
I
supposed
noticed
to.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be there to protect us, to inform us. I mean, it's the First Amendment for a reason, right? I mean, to be informed.
I miss when the news was the news.
Well, when was it though, Jake? Let's get into that. When was the news the news?
Okay, maybe
during your lifetime at any point?
I would say yeah, at some point. Before it became a 24-hour cycle to fill content. It's like the same thing with everything, and we're seeing that now with everything shut down, okay? Like, they have to fill all of these things that are 24-hour news cycle contents, and you got certain side. We'll sit there, and we've been sitting here watching, and we'll watch, like, something on CNN, and then we'll flip to Fox News just to get the opposite side. Then we'll watch Fox News for a little bit and flip back to CNN. It's like, they're filling content. They're playing characters. It's pro wrestling. They're playing characters on a show to invoke a reaction from an audience. There isn't a 24-hour news source, in my opinion, that just gives you news and information. The only one that's that is your own internet feed, because then you can determine to scroll through what is the best options that view you based on, I just think that it's become too much about business and about making money on, television rights and everything, that people will just say outlandish shit, even if they don't believe it. Okay, the whole Alex Jones things, when he came out and said, I'm not actually this person, I'm just playing a character. If half these people, I don't care.
He said that to get out of a lawsuit.
But. Yeah, I know that. But if the similar situation came up with certain, not any of them, but certain news pundits, that's where I meant for pundits on there with their shows, then they'd say, yeah, I'm just playing a character. The one that I have watched that I actually got enjoyed because you could tell was genuine was the Cuomo brothers. You could tell that was a genuine when they were on there. You could tell that was a genuine back and forth thing. But I mean, maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, but you could tell it was a genuine, like they were. Because they were bickering, but it seemed real at least. It's just one of those, I don't know. I just miss the days when the news was on at 6:30 and you got your news at 11. That was it. And it was done. I don't watch.
Sarah,
good.
Oh, I apologize, Jake.
I'm done. Sarah, let Sarah take over.
Tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars spent on this education you've got. We're going to take advantage of that. So you've studied politics. And you're well versed in, theory and I assume history. So when has the media, the news?
I mean, the 24-hour news cycle started in the 80s. Prior to that, you just had your evening news. I don't remember. I don't remember what the first 24-hour.
CNN was the first.
Yeah, and then
CNN.
and then after that, then it was like, okay, we have to fill this, and then some. I don't know why there was ever a need for like more than one of a 24-hour news channel, because now there's like 6 of them.
Okay.
But I do know that started in the 80s, and that's about all I know about the 24-hour news cycle.
Look, let's say that the media and information has gotten worse since the 24-hour news cycle. What I'm asking is, prior to that, when was the news, 100% honest, not sensational, not, sort of kowtowing to their sponsors? Because even before there was, television. I mean, you still had newspapers that were still selling ads. I mean, hasn't there always been some sort of bias in the news? And I can think of a couple that stand out that, broke that mold, like Mencken and people like that. But I mean, I
think it's always a race to get out information the fastest, even if that information isn't accurate. Like the whole Dewey wins when
right.
Dewey didn't win. But I mean, and it's gotten twisted into like a bias, but I think what started first was the desire to get the information out there the fastest, even if that it wasn't necessarily being vetted.
Sure.
She's 100% right, and the fact it's only gotten worse thanks to social media. Because I'll just use the Boston bombing as an example of this. People were just throwing shit out there via like Twitter. They heard it and they threw it out there. No one fact checks. They just go with it. And because there's no repercussions for it if you just put out misinformation. You just come out like, oh, our bad. It's not really held to the same standard that it was once before.
But Josh, wasn't there an era that is known for muckrakers? I mean, wasn't that a whole wing of the media just making shit up and inflaming things? I mean, this has existed for a long time.
Yeah, and you're right. Everyone always has, they think there was a golden era before my time. It must have been better. But if you look at old political ads and from political campaigns from the 1800s, they were just horrific, just flat out accusing people of lies. You had clear back in the colonial times, you had people like Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin putting out pamphlets and putting out their own opinions to try and sway their fellow colonists or soon to be Americans to think a certain way. And they were kind of looked up to as maybe not news, but back then, newspapers, I'm sure each had some of their own spin. They were probably Federalists and anti-Federalists. There were probably news organizations who had more of a spin towards separatists and some that were loyal to the crown. So I would have to believe that there's always been some sort of bias to every type of news that's ever existed. It's just, we just assume that things were always better because of how absolutely ridiculous it is right now.
Yeah, and I'll agree. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous right now. And I think a lot of the things that have been said contribute to that. I mean, we've got a 24-hour news cycle. We've got all the social media. We've got, clickbait essentially is what everything runs on. But all I was trying to bring light to is the fact that, I don't think that there's ever been a golden age when you could really trust. Well, okay, everybody said, Walter Cronkite, right? I mean, he was a pretty straight shooter, right? Yeah, he was a straight shooter. He seemed pretty straightforward. But I mean, look, I'm not going to delve into it because I haven't researched it. But I'm sure if you did, even Walter Cronkite said some stuff that was bullshit. In support of, sort of the American imperialism that was going on during his age. And again, it's not just American imperialism or, commie bullshit or whatever. I mean, look, the news, like anything else, is a business, and it would not exist if it could not be paid for.
Exactly. So
you've either got to, you got to go direct to consumer. And that's really difficult, right? I mean, for many reasons, that is almost impossible. Or you've got to get sponsors, like, what is it? Meet the Press on Sunday morning. Like it used to be like during the after 9/11, during the early days of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, it was Raytheon Grumman. It was Boeing. Like all these guys were sponsoring that's program. Shocking. And I'm like, well, that's, if I was them, I would sponsor it too. I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to put anybody in a guillotine here. I'm just saying, you got to take things with a grain of salt and go ahead.
That's also part of the issue too. When corporate sponsorships really took over news, shouldn't news just be news? I mean,
when has it ever been anything else, Jake?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think now we have the ability that it used to be, in, especially like, in our childhood and our parents' era, it was that you had to go seek out the news. Now the news finds us. Whatever news you want, you can tailor your news feed to come to you. And I'm pretty sure like your news feed is different from Sarah's news feed that's different from mine, that's different from Josh's. So, I mean, it's the information that you kind of look at, and like, I try to find things that are, practical. I have news sources that I consider the most practical on the right and the most practical on the left, and finding the combination, somewhere the common ground in the middle. And you can get that, but there's things out there where people like to go with whatever agrees with what they think or feel. So they're going to be like, well, this person says this, so it must be true because that's how I feel too. They're looking for someone that's going to justify their position.
Yeah, but what better way is there to sell your product these days? And we have targeted marketing. We've got, confirmation bias is super powerful. People only seek out what, confirms what they already think.
Have you ever gone into your Facebook and looked at the ad preferences?
Yeah, I have.
And all of the information that's already been compiled about, I actually just went through and it was like, if you get rid of all these things, then the ads you're seeing may not have any relevance towards you. I was like, okay. But I was like, I went in and I deleted like all this stuff that they had on there that was basically just like things that like I wouldn't have even known that they would have known that I'd be interested in. Like, and like information that was being shared that I didn't know was being shared until I actually went in and turned it off.
Yeah, Josh, I know. I think maybe you posted a couple of these, or maybe it was Sam or Mike or somebody. But what the fuck does Wish think I'm into?
No, Wish knows what you're into.
I get the weird. Well, no, they don't. It's close, but it's it's not there.
Yeah,
Wish can read your mind, buddy. You think it, and it appears.
I've had some pretty good ones from Wish and some from audible.com. Those were some of the best ones. There was,
I've seen some of those too.
The first one on the list is like something I might be interested in, but the more you scroll to the right, there's like dinosaur porn romance novels. It's like, no, I know for sure that I never searched for anything of that.
I had Amish romance novels, like Amish, like Amish.
How about Amish porn dinosaur novels?
There you go.
Yeah, it was an Audible ad, and it was Amish romance novels, and I was like, I
and then Jakob took off his hat.
Yeah. I don't even know.
My favorite is I was scrolling through my thing, and all of a sudden, like, just a bag of cocaine showed up from the Wish app, and I'm like, so I can just order this? Like, is this Wish? I don't think this is legit.
I just like roll of pills.
Yeah, there's just I'm trying to figure out what the hell half the stuff is, and it's looking at it.
Yeah,
that looks like something. I think I know what that is, but I'm not going to ask, and I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
One of my favorites.
Go ahead.
One of my favorites was when I was living with Adam Burr, who's been on here a bunch of times, and we're living in the same house. And he would just back when he was still drinking, he would just order shit off the Wish app, and all of a sudden stuff would just start coming, and he would have no idea because it takes forever to get here. So it would always be like a surprise. One day he opened up a pair of brass knucks. I was like, "Where'd you get that?" And he's like, "The Wish app." Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how Wish gets you too, because like when I see that, because inevitably it always pops up on my news feed, and I'm like, that's what the fuck is that? Yeah. Like, and I want to click on it, and then they're like, you got to install the app, and I'm like, I want to install the app.
I ordered one thing from the Wish app, and it was I ordered a keychain of the Overlook Hotel from The Shining, because people have come to my apartment and are like, oh my God, it looks like The Shining down the hallway. So I thought that'd be kind of funny, except for it says the Overlook Hotel. But it was free, so I have no complaint.
I love English.
English is great.
Yeah, always pee elegantly and precisely. Yeah, I don't know. Well, now Jake's gone, but no, it's a product, and it always has been. I don't know at any time that people just did news, for altruistic reasons, and maybe the individual reporters did, But you still got to pay for, their living, and you got to pay for the research and everything that goes into it. So, I'm not sitting here saying fake news because that's a cop out, right? And I think a lot of news has been valuable, but you got to take everything with a grain of salt, because I think, just like with this situation, I saw, it's clickbait. They're trying to make some money. It's complete bullshit headlines. And that just fuels, like right now, that just fuels the other side. Like Trump says it's all fake news. And if you're like of that mindset, then that just proves it.
When you mentioned that earlier, that you were scrolling through, I had the exact same experience. I watched the video of what Trump said. So I made up my own mind. I saw it come out of his mouth. I didn't have to read somebody else's opinion. So then today, as I'm scrolling through, I am seeing headlines like, Trump suggests you should ingest Lysol. And it's like, no, I roasted the hell out of him for what he actually said. But I know that he didn't say that. And something that I've tried to keep in mind from as long as I've been working in politics is that there is way more than enough stuff to criticize people about that's real. You don't need to make shit up, because all it does is detract from what you have to say. And it gives them fodder to call fake news or whatever, stuff about Obama. There were a million different things that you could criticize him for, dropping bombs in Yemen, blowing up a hospital, shit like that.
Wedding parties.
Things about him being Muslim, about him being from Kenya. Just there's so much real shit to criticize.
Well, and our president right now was one of the leaders of that charge.
Yeah, that was kind of his foray into politics, other than like one other failed presidential run that was half-assed anyway.
I don't know. He's I've been he's the only president I've been in the room with twice, though.
Really?
I got to see him take a stunner from Stone Cold Steve Austin live at WrestleMania. It was fantastic.
I'll be right back.
That's some good stuff there. And to his credit, this is what he said. His people said, this is when he was doing, before he got into politics, and he was doing the Apprentice show on NBC. This is in 2007 in Detroit, and my buddy Yuri and a bunch of others went up there. Ford Field, WrestleMania, and they said to Trump, they go, "You don't have to do this. You don't have to get physical." And Trump said to him, he goes, "You don't understand this audience. You don't understand the fan base." Hang on, let me do it right. "You don't understand the fan base." "Yes, I do. I have to do this." So I was like, if that's where Donald Trump ended, dude, cool. Like, you got your audience. And now I think that he's to a point where he's in way over his head, in my humble opinion, just watching things. He's just like, oh shit. I still, to this day, and I don't get into arguments. I don't really get into much political arguments anymore, because I've learned that it just doesn't go anywhere. I'd rather just focus on what we have in common as opposed to what we disagree on. But like, he's one of those where it's like, I really feel that like this whole thing was a publicity stunt that went really, really wrong. And now he's stuck doing a job where he doesn't want it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Funny or Die had a video like that of guys like, "Oh, dude, it'll be hilarious," and then just going through the stages of like, "Oh shit, we're actually gonna win." They had a really great video.
Yeah, something like that. Like, oh. And there's always this thing where, like, I mean, I'm intrigued to see how this entire 2020 election is going to go, because you can't even get, like, the young people aren't going to, I mean, this is my opinion. I just think he's going to win again, just because of the shit that's going on and the candidate that's up there. That's just my humble opinion on it, is that, I don't know. I mean, there's how many billions of people you could pick to choose, and the one you went with? Sarah, what's your thoughts on that? What's your comment on that?
So, 1 second. So that's your hot take. I will say,
you came back. I'm sorry. I thought you left us.
No, I didn't leave permanently. So, historically, though, I mean, George W. Bush was not doing too well first term. And then a lot of people said, and I think that Trump's taken a page out of the playbook, well, he was a wartime president, and you can't, you don't want to change horses midstream, right? I mean, that was the logic. So I have no predictions, because it's been crazy. But Sarah, what's your hot take on this?
I mean, I think we have a lot of months to go. I think it could go either way. I feel like if he keeps just being his normal level of stupid, he will probably win. but if he takes it to like a new
That's so
level,
sad.
I mean, I think right now, I don't think people are turned off enough, but I think like if he acts more like an idiot, which could easily happen, in the next.
Could it?
I think it could. I think it could. I think, but again, and back to I guess Josh's point of, I feel like people like to point out things that they don't necessarily like. It's not helpful to constantly be like, oh, like let's make memes about injecting Lysol or bleach or whatever. I mean, it's funny, but you have to remember that you are also friends and family with people that do align with Trump. And if you're going to convince them otherwise, maybe making jokes about everything and how stupid he is isn't the way to achieve that.
Well,
Agreed.
people don't rely on me for political opinions because I joke
Well, not
about
you.
everything.
No, not you.
But so, Josh, you cannot spare the competitor for Trump in this election either. And maybe he's doing the best thing right now by just shutting the fuck up and not
I think you're
smelling
right.
any more
Have we
hair.
found Biden? Is he okay?
Yeah.
He doesn't
No
even
one has
need
heard
to
from
say
him.
anything. He doesn't need to say anything.
He's
think
sitting
somebody
there.
told him just stay home and
Shut up, for
and-
God's sakes.
Maybe that's the way to win. Just shut the fuck up and
Don't
just
say a word.
just let the other guy talk and just sit
Put
there
up a
like,
picture just put up a picture of Barack and go.
yeah, just stop being creepy, dude.
Creepy.
Just
Sarah's
pop.
point.
I like the thing. I like the thing I saw. It was like, it puts the Biden on its skin or it gets the Trump again. Should be the total campaign of this election for everyone. Do you want your creepy uncle or your racist uncle? You only can pick one of the two. Good luck.
To Sarah's
boy.
point, I think if Trump could have just held it together and like made some semblance of an intelligent leadership through the whole COVID thing, he probably would have come out pretty good at the end of it. But
Yeah.
he cannot shut the fuck up and cannot stop saying stupid shit. He's his own worst enemy because he thinks he's a genius, and he's the type of person that will just keep talking, whether he knows what he's saying or not. He just needs to be talking, and he just keeps digging himself deeper. So I don't want to make any predictions either because I was wrong last time. But I think if he could have made a good showing and shown that he was a statesman and knew what was going on and could lead the nation through this troubling time and all that kind of stuff, he would do much better in November than just coming out and looking like a total buffoon every single day.
I have faith in the doctors that we have out there and the people that are actually on the front lines, doctors, nurses, and whatnot, and the scientists that are going to help us get through this difficult time. However, I also have faith that Donald Trump will take full credit for all of their work. And he'll come through on the other side and go, look what I did.
Well, that's kind of his genius.
But that's his gimmick. That's just what he does.
Well, it's kind of his genius, though. He says, well, this is an excellent idea. I think it'll work. Maybe not. And we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Very
like it covers
non-committal.
all your bases.
Right.
And I
And
mean,
then he can come back and go, I never said that. You guys are fake news.
and I said this during the election of Barack Obama. I said, for people who are politically aligned with Barack Obama, he was a mirror. Like, he basically said things that were just vague enough and just for him, he was eloquent and just lofty enough, though, that whatever your ideals were, you could project them onto him and say, yes, that is what I want. And, it worked amazingly well. He didn't accomplish a lot of those things that the people that were ideologically aligned with him wanted to do, though he did some good things, too. Now, conversely, with Trump, I mean, he is so all over the place that I think, especially in the beginning, that people that wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt just said, he's taken every position. So, you can find something to like about him, right? But, as time goes on, like you've all said, I mean, he just doesn't know how to shut the fuck up. I mean, literally, if he would let's just take one facet of his public persona away. Let's just say we took Twitter away. If we took Twitter away, I mean, I might actually be able to look. I don't disagree with everything that Trump's done. I think he's done some things that are fairly decent. I think he's done some things that are bad, but that's every president. It would be like, if he didn't tweet so much, he wasn't such an abrasive asshole. Like, I'd feel about him like I do about every president. Like, did some good things, did some bad things, whatever. But, you add that dimension in. So now you've really polarized people. And even, I don't know. Dissentists, like independents. Well, first of all, do you think they even exist anymore? I consider myself one, but
I'm an independent.
Am I super rare? Or is this like...
That's 50% of this room right now, as far as I know. I mean, I'm absolutely an independent as far as...
Well, that's us, but I'm just saying, of the population, is there a true independent anymore? Is there anybody that can really be swayed? Or are they just too dumb to pick something?
I mean,
do they really weigh things out?
I think people go with what they think is going to win.
Well, and that's sad. But I think you're probably right.
I'm not saying it's not, but I think people go with what they're either very ideological, they stick with their guns, or they go with what I think the majority of people who aren't really into politics go with what they think is going to win because they don't want to vote for a loser.
Okay, so Diggs, your hot take is that most independents or nonpartisans are just waiting to see who it looks like is going to win, and they vote for them because they'll get. I think
most independents make their decision that aren't really. If we're talking about independents, I'm not talking about people who are doing shows like we are right now. I'm talking about I would consider my mom an independent. She's voted for both sides throughout the course of my life. Certain people out there, I think the average person who's undecided will go in there and make their decision the day of. I really do, based on the information leading all the way up to that exact moment. And it's all about, they always try to find, no matter who it is, that one thing that they can get to persuade you to, and especially usually every incumbent president always has a technique they use to go in for re-election, for example, and especially now in modern times, much more so than in the past. But when Barack Obama, Bin Laden got found, George W. Bush, all of a sudden we found Saddam, stuff like that. It's Clinton was the right guy in the right time. I don't really know what his was, but it was just
he just played saxophone, got blowjobs.
Yeah, it was all right. I just think it's one of those where that's always the incumbent's technique to do something major, to be okay, restore your faith, come back for the second half.
So centrist voters might be issues voters, because for me in particular, look, if a presidential candidate came right out, and as long as the rest of their platform wasn't absolutely batshit insane. If they just came out and said, look, dude, we're going to go door to door and take your guns. I'd have a problem with that. If they just said that, I'm not saying everybody would have a problem with that. I'm not saying their opponents said that about them or whatever, but that would be an issue that would be a non-starter for me. I know that people feel similarly about a plethora of issues. Political scientist, Sarah, let's hear from you on this.
To be honest, probably for the past, 4 or 5 years, I've never felt so disenchanted with politics. I graduated with my master's in 2009, and I was very adamant about the Obama campaign. I was very engaged, and kind of since then, I have not really cared about the Democratic candidates, which I've only ever voted for one Republican in my whole life. It was Betty Montgomery. I voted Democratic across the board for everything else. But now it's okay, well, there's Bernie Sanders, and I could be behind his ideas, but I think they're a little bit too extreme and unrealistic for me. And he's very old. So
he is old.
And then Biden, I thought
who's also
who's also very old and bumbling and whatever. I don't give a shit about him. I think Trump's a moron. So I mean, it's almost I don't even want to vote because I really just don't like any of them.
And I think I agree with you, Sarah, and I'm in the same boat. And I think a lot of the people in our generation are the same boat. And thus, if people don't come out and vote, we're going to end up in. I mean, it's 4 more years.
Well,
That's
Or just one dipshit versus the other.
What was South Park? A giant douche versus a turd sandwich?
Yeah,
that was it.
I mean,
So
that's what it feels like to me.
Josh, I want to ask you this question too, but I want to add this caveat to it that you can expound upon possibly too. So again, we are once again facing the most important election of anybody's lifetime ever, right? So let's get that out of the way. That's every single one, right? But I hear rumors that Justin Amish might be run libertarian. So, with everything else that's said too, and let's talk about centrists, or do you believe they even exist? I mean, is it a time for a third party to actually do anything?
I volunteered for Gary Johnson's campaign in 2012 and 2016. And both of those elections, I had people tell me, I would talk face to face with people at a convention or whatever. And I've had people tell me, I agree with everything you're saying, but this election is just too important. I can't throw my vote away.
Every single time.
And I always try and encourage people to vote their conscience. Make your candidate earn your vote. Vote for the person who you agree with. Don't vote against someone. Don't vote for who you think can win. Give your vote to the person who actually represents you, who you would like to see in the White House or in that Senate seat or in the congressional seat. But every time it's, I don't know. I really like what you're saying, or I like this independent view, but it's just too important. And a lot of people said when Hillary Clinton was running that this was the best year for libertarians because everyone hated Trump and all the people who didn't hate Trump hated Clinton. So it's going to be great for libertarians. Well, no, it's not, because most of the people were not voting for who they wanted to win. They were voting against the person they were most afraid of.
The lesser of two
evils. The more
evils.
fear there is in the election, the worse it is for a third party. If it were just two vanilla douches who were basically interchangeable, that would be the perfect year for a libertarian to run, where it's two guys nobody's afraid of, nobody cares about, they're not that much different. No one's afraid they're going to start World War III. That's where your libertarian is going to do fantastic, is in my opinion, or your third party, whichever one it is. But libertarian is pretty much the biggest one there is. But when you have two polarizing candidates, it's not good for third parties, I don't think.
I agree with that too. And I'm not decided, and I'll let you guys, if you want to, say what you think about this. But this is going to be, hopefully, maybe still be, though I don't have a whole, God, it's going to be hard voting for that dude. But this is going to be the first year in my adult life since I turned 18 that I was going to vote strategically. I just don't want that dude there. It's too volatile. I'm concerned with business. I'm concerned with a bunch of different things. What we need really, I think, out of government in general is stability above all. No matter how intrusive they are, even if they're super intrusive, let's say they take 50% of everything we make, as long as that's what it is and it's stable, then, we'll find a way around it. So this is going to be the first year. Right. Yeah, exactly. This is going to be the first year I voted strategically and not voted for a libertarian or something. To your point, Josh, I mean, I agree. It's when you've got very polarizing figures, it's probably not a good year for a third party. We'd have to change our whole political system for that. I mean, I don't know. It depends on who the third party is and how much money they have, because Donald Trump proved that in 2016. If you have enough money, you can win. No, but he wasn't a third party. He captured the Republican. He bought the Republican Party. Well, he didn't buy it. He bought it. He didn't buy it.
And both of you guys know how important that underlying infrastructure is. Trying to start your own political party in our county, or trying to be a part of the Libertarian Party of Ohio. It's hard. Most of your work is an uphill battle just to even be on the ballot. If you can buy your way into an existing party, There's half the battle right out.
I still have my certificate of election for the Libertarian Party hanging in my living room right now.
Nice.
County Central Committee, the only election office I ever won, you know? And that's the thing too, it's like trying to get your message out there and speak to people and say things before it was hard. Now people just come back with, you're stupid.
I have to plug my computer in.
Okay.
Good deal. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's never a good time for third parties, and I think that's basically the way the country's set up. And in my lifetime, like my ROI on all of this is just like that's why I left the party. Like I didn't leave. I'm still a libertarian. I'm a liberal, right? But like I don't really involve myself because the return on investment is so low, and I don't think it's ever really going to change just because the way that our system, we would have to have an overhaul of the entire system. We'd have to go to like a parliamentary or some other system. You know, and our system works okay, I guess, not so much anymore. So, you know, what I'm looking for is, you know, the option that does possibly the most good and the least harm. So again, like you said, Jake, I mean, it's, you know, the turd sandwich or the douchebag sandwich.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, the giant douche or the turd sandwich. It's like, okay, what do you want? Do you want it in the front or you want it in the ass? Take your pick.
Yeah, it's a fucked up situation to be in, but I don't see that changing anytime in my lifetime. But who knows?
I would have agreed with you, but now who knows? I mean, I also, if somebody would have said to me the guy who hosted WrestleMania 4 was going to be the president of the United States, I'd been like, what?
He just hired Vince McMahon for something, didn't he?
No, he hired all of the sports guys. Yeah, it's the day that the Vince McMahon filed for bankruptcy with the XFL. He put him on the economic resurrection tax, whatever the hell it's called. So that was pretty comical. We're like, oh. And it's interesting to see how many people are now connecting the dots on the connection between McMahon and Trump. Did you know that professional wrestling or WWE is an essential business to America? Because
in
certain states,
Florida, mysteriously, when they donated $18.5 million to the Florida governor's campaign or whatever it was, boom, they go.
Fuck yeah, you're
who's in charge of Trump's super PAC? Linda McMahon, Vince's wife. 1 + 1 + 1 is 3, folks. 1 + 1, but no one ever paid attention to it because it's pro wrestling and that shit's fake.
I have a question for Josh.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So Josh, being a libertarian, what do you think about the protests that have been happening at the Capitol?
You know, this is kind of libertarian blasphemy, but I think people should stay home, but not necessarily just because the government told them to. I think that it's understandable that the people are out of work and they want to go back to work. That's a segment of the protesters. Another segment is the contrarians who just don't want to be told what to do, which generally libertarians would probably kind of fall into that category. Yeah. But a huge part of being a libertarian is taking personal responsibility for your actions. And going out and doing something stupid and then getting someone sick and somebody else's grandma dying because you wanted to be an ass and show that, I don't listen to the government, that's not responsible. You still need to take responsible actions for yourself and don't just not do things just because the government told me to. You know, if the government tells me, don't you jump off that bridge, I'm not going to go jump off the bridge just because you're not going to tell me what to do. I think there's plenty of room between listening to the experts and doing your best to protect yourself and others, to be responsible, and also being concerned about legitimate power grabs, of course. But I don't think that that's really what we're seeing. And no, I'm still employed. I'm actually working from home right now, but I'm still drawing a paycheck. Maybe I would feel differently if I was waiting on unemployment to come in, but I don't necessarily think I would. I think it's more that.
Oh, you would.
Well, probably, but I mean, of course, everybody wants to be back to work.
No, I was in the Open Ohio Facebook group for about a week, and it was informative in some respects, and the admins for the group were like very devoted to making sure that there wasn't like they're like don't promote conspiracy theories, don't make this political, don't like this is a single issue and this is the only thing that we should be talking about. We shouldn't be talking about abortion or comparing this to that. But the reality is that the group members themselves were so entrenched in those ideas of
you saw the photos
of and they're heavily partisan. Like they're like the one admin was like, I was thinking about wearing pink to the protest today because I just didn't want to wear red or make it seem like it was a Republican issue or a Trump supporter or whatever. And I'm like, cool, but like the reality is like all these other people in the group that are talking about 5G, which they they're trying to shoot down. They try to shoot down people talking about 5G, but then you still have, but then it's still, people dressing up as, armed militia, with their MAGA hats and, or the Nazis showing up with their, anti-Semitic signs. And I was like, you can try, like they're trying to protect their image, but like the reality is that the majority of the members of those groups are exactly what we think that they are.
Yeah, well, gentlemen, we know a little bit about trying to protect your image, going all the way back to the Tea Party movement. Man,
that got hijacked.
You're just hoping to make it like about freedom, and that got hijacked pretty hardcore, pretty quick.
I remember when you and I were at the Tea Party rally in downtown Akron with our old friend Mr. Liston, and I'm sitting there. Basically, it just turned into like the Republicans took it all over and just started bitching about the Democrats. I'm like, y'all know you're just as equal to blame about this shit too, right? It's like,
exactly.
What? It's like, that's the problem,
and Josh
too.
Oh, go ahead, Jake.
No, go ahead. The other thing I was going to say, that's the problem too. Once people get involved and they see a movement and people are following it, they're gonna hijack it.
Well, when
it comes to politics,
it's hard to build a movement. It's easy to take one over.
Exactly.
But yeah, Josh, I wanted to give you some context here too, because Sarah and I, we've known each other for a long time, and we've often been, we've always been friends, but we've often been on opposite sides of, I guess, a political spectrum.
I'm more of a socialist.
Yeah, and I thought it was so interesting when you're joining groups that want to reopen things, and I'm being like the bureaucratic nanny status, like, hey, I don't know, let's keep this closed. So,
kids change, y'all.
Yeah, it's been a 360 for a lot of people, or a 180. 360 would be we get right back to where you were, but yeah.
You know what they say? If you're a conservative when you're young, you have no heart, and if you are a liberal when you're old, you have no brain.
Well, that's because we have a very convoluted idea of what a liberal is.
Yeah.
In contemporary America, but I digress.
I find it funny, like people will like argue with me with politics online, as I'm for a while, because I try to make a point not to post anything political. But like people will back would argue like with political things, and like you're such a liberal, or like we call it a libtard, and I'm like, you don't know me at all.
You snowflake. You snowflake.
Save space.
Yeah, right.
Sorry for interrupting, Josh. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna say, from a libertarian perspective, and I kind of alluded to that, I do think we should keep things closed. From the libertarian side, this could have been handled much better, and I think it could have been handled with less government, or less government in a certain way. So
or maybe more decentralized.
Sure, yeah. So rather than, hey, everything's shut down, perhaps a lot more education campaigns, put the money towards education. Here's what you actually need to do to protect yourself. We had the CDC and the WHO and everybody saying, you don't need a mask, and masks don't even work, and you're probably too dumb to wear it properly anyway. Well, that's just a flat out lie. They definitely work. If they had told us, hey, masks do work, but we need you to conserve them. Here's how you make a mask yourself, and you should be wearing it from day one. That would have saved lots of lives. But instead they lied, and the government locked things down. Hey, everything's closed right now. Well, if we had given people good information first, educate them first. Hey, look, this is for real. It's not the flu. You do need to have a mask. You need to wash your hands. You need to stay 6 feet, 10 feet away from each other. You can go out to places, but be responsible. And then, I'm a libertarian, but I consider myself a minarchist. I think there is a role
Me
for
too.
government to play. And I think one of the roles that government could have played is that rather than force businesses to close, they could have spent some of these funds encouraging businesses to close. Hey, look, here's a certain sector of the economy we don't think is essential, but maybe you do. But here's how we'll encourage you to close it, or we will, we'll provide paycheck protection for restaurant workers. We're not going to tell you
incentivize it,
down, but if you choose
but
to
not
shut
order
down,
it.
we will keep you. We'll keep funding you. Or hey, you can stay open, but if you'd like to stay open, here's a fund where you can get masks, you can get cleaning supplies, you can get sanitation supplies. So routing some of those funds towards more freedom, more education, but also encouraging anybody who does want to shut down, I think could have been done much better and a much smaller impact on the economy.
I mean, there was also no notice whatsoever. Literally, it was announced at 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon with nothing. Nobody knew anything at all, and then it was just like all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay, well, 9:00 tonight. That's it.
You all lose your jobs.
My sister-in-law is a bartender, and she was actually coming to my house for a party that day. And she got to my house and was like, apparently I'm unemployed. I just heard on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. There was no notice.
No, there was no ability for people to plan for things, even if there were restaurants that were, bars / restaurants. I work for the Winking Lizard. I don't know if you had gathered that before, but I am a manager.
She actually used to work
Lizard.
there too.
And how do you say, okay, well, you're doing 75, 80% in-house business, and now you have to switch to just doing takeout. You have to inform all of your staff, and you have to implement, what's gonna happen literally in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Less than a day.
And you just can't drop that on people and expect everything to run smoothly. But now you're seeing that some more, as the government has allowed, take out alcohol. I'm sure that has been great for a lot of places that serve alcohol. I don't know if it's nearly made up for what they're losing.
I don't know
if they had been given that information in advance to say, hey, you need to start planning for a situation where this is a real deal and you do need some sort of closures, business owners would have found a way to make themselves money and protect their customers and their employees too. As much as a lot of people want to hate business owners and they're just a bunch of rich assholes, but they don't want to lose their employees and they definitely don't want to lose their customers. They have a financial incentive to still make money while protecting most of their customers and employees.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's lost a lot. I mean, like companies, even corporations, right? I mean, they're just people. I mean, and they're not people in this. Okay, I'm not going to get into that whole debate with the.
I see what you did there.
Okay, yeah. No, but they're made up of people. They are not people.
There are people in corporations. Yeah.
There are, and we all work for some sort of incorporation, unless we're sole proprietors, and even
LLC.
I guess even then. Well, that's an incorporation. I mean, it's a company.
Yeah.
A limited liability corporation, right? So like these are all, I don't know, it's demonized so much, but I was much more of an anarchist before all this shit happened, Josh. And I become much more
of a socialist.
Okay with being a minarchist, Sarah.
I had to drop a watermelon off the house.
Man, everybody got their $1,200 check and immediately they were socialists.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you dropping the watermelons. Watermelons at my house was mutual aid, and I got to get something back to you. That was voluntary. No government entity.
Kara
forced
wanted
you
to
do
Venmo
that.
me money for the watermelon. I was like, no, like, it's really good.
Well, that's your
I
fault.
got all my
Shit, you could've-
government. I got all my government money. I'm good.
But yeah, I mean, this is a weird time for me, and I've talked about this in shows past, but it's really making me question, some of my strongly held core principles. And I don't know, Josh, like you follow probably a lot of libertarians like I do on social media, and one of the things that's been disappointing to me, and I'm not going to get into this too much because I've already discussed it in other shows, but it's just like the inability to admit that maybe you can't make reality fit your preconceived ideology. I mean, I've seen so much of that, and it's disheartening because I know these folks are really smart people, and I've always thought that their hearts were in the right places. I really did, and they probably are. And maybe they're just not, but they're just being so freaking ideological, and it drives me nuts.
I don't think a lot of them would want to admit it, but let's say 20 November comes along and the Libertarian Party runs pretty much a hardcore anarchist and somehow wins, and that anarchist shuts everything down the next day. The entire world would be in disarray. You cannot just take overnight the United States government and cut it down to the absolute bare bones minimum and expect anybody to be happy with that. No one would be happy with it. Right. Even anarchists would not be happy with it because their lives would be ruined overnight almost, because so much of our society and the world is dependent on our government institutions and structures that we have in place being stable. As you mentioned earlier, having that stability, it would just be absolute chaos. It wouldn't be, the market, the free hand, the invisible hand of the free market.
Invisible hand, yes. Adam Smith.
It has to have something to build off of. You can't just say tomorrow there's no government. Can't. Have fun and expect that to happen overnight. That people would die, millions of people would die. It wouldn't be great. You have to have some amount of pragmatism to you to say, okay, look, any incremental push towards more freedom is good. I can work with somebody who considers themselves a socialist because we agree on this. And if we can agree on that, then we can work towards that goal, at least together. Maybe you're a Republican, but you are looking for some more freedom in this area. Okay, great. We can work with that too. Sticking hardcore to a certain ideology and refusing to budge on anything that isn't perfect is just a recipe for failure.
No, it absolutely is. And I had a whole thought train lined up, and then it sounded like there was like a gunshot upstairs, but I think it was somewhere there's folks down the street having just like a regular old
right on the thought train, and
I think they were shooting off guns or something. I don't know.
Gun shooting in the town you live in? That's shocking.
Never. But
America.
But gosh, what was I? Boy, you had many of the things you just said, Josh, were things I agree with, and gosh, this is embarrassing. As a semi amateur, not really good broadcaster, but
you've been drinking all day.
Dead air.
I have.
In your defense, you have been. I mean,
I have been.
I just started just like when I did this show.
This is only my third beverage.
Yeah, I'm on beverage 3 or 4. And apparently I've just been informed I'm missing the Triple H show.
Is that Kara?
What was that?
I heard a woman.
No, that was Keita who was just talking to me. Is Kara downstairs?
No, she's not, but there's all kinds of noise going on upstairs, and it just really threw me off because I thought, oh my God, did somebody get shot?
They're throwing watermelon
and there was no
everywhere.
screaming, so I figured it was okay. So I have a pretty anyway. Back to Josh. Yes. So yes, definitely my definitions of what it means to be a libertarian have changed. Boy, you said so many damn good things, and I didn't take any notes. Guys, Jesus Christ, we've been on for an hour and a half already.
Yeah, and there's nobody.
And we
watching.
started on time.
There's nobody watching except for me and somebody else.
We are going to be, well, that's fine. People will watch later. There's always like 100 people that watch after the fact.
Last week there was like 20 people watching.
So your honeypot effect obviously is not working tonight.
That's because I wasn't in charge.
Maybe you could put on a little more makeup,
I put on foundation. I did my eyeliner.
Yeah, all I did was shave my cheeks because I saw that tutorial from Josh.
Hey, there you go.
Not that I don't already do that, but I was like, yeah, I could probably.
I think maybe more of a cohesive topic, like more,
I think
I
it
don't
was
know that Nick's ever done a cohesive topic.
No,
I
like
don't do
having
cohesive topics.
Set 2 or 3 set topics.
Well, that would require me not to be working and drinking all day, which is, I'm not getting paid for this at the moment.
Why did anybody do that?
I'm getting paid for this.
Maybe someday. Oh, you are, of course. Maybe someday I'll get that sweet
I make
Coke
more
money,
money
or maybe.
right now. I make more money now.
Hey, good for you. But
I
maybe I can
would
get
too
that
if mine would ever go through.
Raytheon money, Coke money. I need to get you some of that Coke money, Diggs. And I don't, not Coke.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
okay,
we'd all use that Coke money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was confusing.
I need some of that sweet corn money with a K.
Corn money. So, Sleep is a band, right?
It is, yeah. Yeah, they're kind of a legendary stoner band.
Yes, they are. So what is your connection to stoner music? Because I see that you follow a lot of these bands. And are you yourself a stoner?
So,
I didn't think so.
No, I all my friends were stoners in high school, and I just didn't care for it. I was an alcohol guy, and I still don't. But I really love the music. I just think it's really great music. I saw Sleep up in at the Agora, actually, and it was like the loudest show I've ever heard. My clothes were just vibrating. It was amazing. They're fantastic.
So I've not listened to Sleep. Are they another like stoner metal band where it's like one note, a couple of drum hits?
They're pretty slow.
Another note.
they're not quite that slow.
Okay.
They're a pretty slow band. Their whole claim to fame is they made like one record and then got signed to a major label, and the major label fronted them a bunch of money to make the next record, and they just blew it all on weed and guitars. And then the record label was like, "Hey, where's our album?" And so they wrote one 60-minute song and turned it in and said, "Fuck you." And
Here you
here's
go.
your album. And the album was called Dope Smoker. So
Good for them.
that's where they got their fame from, at least within that world.
I guess I can get into some stoner metal, but I ran
They
sound
won
for
a
a long
Grammy
time.
not too long ago, actually, for their album. It's called The Sciences. That's their newest album. Check it out. It's pretty badass.
The Sciences by Sleep, everybody. Check that out. They won a Grammy for that?
I believe they won a Grammy.
Well, I got to check that out after I'm done listening to the entire catalog of Tiny Tim once again, because that's what I do. So yeah, guys, Diggs, Sarah, Josh, it's been a great night. I think we've really outstayed our welcome on the cyberspace here. However, as always, and this is one of the perks of being on this show, if anybody out there wants to be on this fucking show, is when I hit end broadcast, we are still connected. We can still talk, which is sweet. And you won't know any of that. You won't know any of that content, all the really juicy stuff, until you join my OnlyFans page. Wait, I don't have. I'm
Your
kidding.
OnlyFan or your what?
Fans only. What is it called? Like you can.
They don't know what you're talking. They don't know what you're talking about.
It's for strippers online. Anyway, I'm going to end the broadcast. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Neither of them knew. Bye.